us as they come on. We will be recording this session so that folks who were not able to join us in live and in person will be able to catch a recording of it. Before we get started with the actual content, I'm going to turn it over to our interpreter for the evening, Lionel, and he will share some instructions for anyone who would like to use the Spanish interpretation option. I'm going to pull up my slides here so that we can let me go back to the beginning.
Okay.
Hold on a sec. Yeah. Okay. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. So I will turn it over to Lionel to explain the Spanish interpretation, and then we'll get started.
Okay. Muy buenos días a todos, yo soy Lionel, yo voy a ser el intérprete en español y obviamente todo esto es confidencial, pero vamos a dar unas instrucciones si ustedes quieren escuchar esta reunión en español. Para escuchar esta junta en español desde una computadora, tienen que buscar el símbolo de un globo o un circulito en la parte de abajo de su pantalla, en el lado derecho de la barra negra, en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Puede estar etiquetado como interpretación, ahí puede decir eso. Entonces, le va a hacer clic ahí en el icono del globo terráqueo, ahí nomasito, y luego deberían de aparecer varias opciones de idioma. Ahí van a seleccionar español, que ustedes quieren escuchar español, y luego va a poner, lo que va a suceder es que ustedes no van a escuchar el audio original, solamente me van a escuchar a mí. Entonces, si lo van a escuchar en esta junta en español desde un teléfono celular, igual va a aparecer un mensaje preguntando si desean interpretación. Usted le da clic en el mensaje, que dice, de ahí va a poner seleccionar más y le va a salir interpretación, y ahí selecciona español. Y ahí lo mismo, se va a silenciar el audio original y solamente me van a escuchar a mí. Y si no aparece un mensaje y está en la reunión, busque la opción más en el lado derecho de la barra negra en la parte inferior de la pantalla del teléfono y luego siga los pasos del 3 al 6.
Hold on one sec. I'm going to start the interpretation. I think I might have to stop sharing to do that. So let me get that started. All right, we now have interpretation mode. You're all set? Great. All right, so let's get this party started for real this time. Hold on one sec here. Second, sorry. Technical difficulties here. You would think at this point in our life with COVID, I would know how to do this properly. All right, here we go. And let's start from the beginning. All right, welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining us for the 2024 grant cycle information session for the Kensington Community Resilience Fund. We are very excited to see some old faces, well, not old, but some returning faces and some new faces as well. We're just excited to have this grant cycle starting, and I will get things rolling now. So today we're going to start by sharing our mission, goals, and background, just a little bit of overview of the fund. We'll talk a bit about the participatory approach, particularly how it relates to how your grants will be reviewed. We'll talk about our funding focus areas, guiding principles, and grant sizes and uses, which will really be a parameter for how your work, for what work gets funded. We'll talk about eligibility criteria, how to apply for funding and that process, and we'll actually give some screenshots of our portal so you can even have a sense of what you'll be looking for when you go to apply. And then we'll just go over next steps and have time for Q&A. I would say if you have questions as we go along, please put them in the chat. And if I do notice them and they relate to something that's coming up, I'll try to address them as we go. If not, we'll address all the questions at the end of the session. Some things that you ask, we may actually address even as we go through.
Great.
So our mission, goals, and background. So the Kensington Community Resilience Fund's mission, by community for community, the Kensington Community Resilience Fund amplifies resident voices and celebrates the vibrancy and strength of the Kensington, Harrowgate, and Fairhill communities. Through our community-led participatory model, we provide funding and capacity building support to organizations working to promote wellness, build resilience, and improve the quality of life for the residents most harmed by the opioid crisis. So this is our new mission statement. Some of you might also notice our new logo at the bottom corner there. So we're getting more and more official as we go through each grant cycle, which is exciting for us. But all of this was informed and given the green light by our community advisory committee. So it has the community stamp of approval. So the goals for our work, we first seek to promote wellness, build resilience, and improve the quality of life, which you saw in our mission in the neighborhoods that we serve. And we really do this through the funding that we distribute to the community and to the organizations that apply. We also seek to increase agency and support equity and racial and social justice. And this is really about our participatory process and by having our partners and residents really decide funding strategy and decisions. We seek to build cohesion and connectivity between community providers, residents, and the city. Really, this is about greater collaboration, information sharing, alignment of services. And we do this through a lot of our supportive programming and our learning community and opportunities we try to bring our community together as a whole. We also look to expand the capacity of our participants, both organizations and individuals. So for those who are a part of our grant making and part of our advisory committee, we hope they come away learning new skills and having new experiences. For our grantees, we also hope that we are building their capacity, whether it's helping them figure out how to write a grant application by doing this work, or for those who are further along through training that we provide as part of the learning community that's open to all grantees. And then finally, we hope to serve as a catalyst for long-term sustained investment and partnership with funders in the community. And this is really important. We, from the start of this work, wanted to create a fund that would really promote and support funders to be able to give in the long term and not just support a random organization here or there, but really look at Kensington as a partnership for them. And we feel that we are moving in that direction, which is really great since we have many of our funders have been with us from the very beginning. Just to share, we often hear the term community in our work, and we have people say, well, who do you mean by the community? So for us, it's a pretty expansive definition. And this is actually one of the things that our community advisory committee even expanded further on when we had our meetings several weeks ago. But we mean our residents of the neighborhoods that we serve, all of the community-based organizations, whether they're social service agencies, grassroots nonprofits, larger nonprofits, all the great community development corporations, you name it. We also consider the faith-based community, our community, civic associations and friends groups, and then finally, schools, libraries, city government. There's probably other groups that are missing, but that was about as comprehensive as we could all get. And finally, just as some quick background, so our structure is a public-private community partnership with the City of Philadelphia, Scattergood Foundation, who really serves as our key strategic and operating partner. And then most importantly, the residents and community leaders in Kensington, Harrowgate, and Fairhill, who are part of our processes and really take a lead role. We receive our funding from the City of Philadelphia with national opioid settlement dollars, as well as grant funding from a variety of regional funders, namely Scattergood Foundation, Patricia Kind Family Foundation, and the Nelson Foundation are our current funders. And since we started, we've awarded $760,000 in general operating grants to the community. These are all to groups that are in the community serving our footprint or located in our footprint. All of these grants have been decided by residents who are part of our granting groups. And we anticipate this year we will award an additional $360,000 in our grants this year. And this just shows you kind of how that has grown over the years. So the one thing I'll point out is that, you know, our first two rounds, we wanted to kind of open it up. So when we had a second round, we said, you know, if you had received a grant in the prior round, you couldn't, you need to wait until another round. But in our third round of funding, you can see that out of the 36 organizations who received grants, 20 of them were prior grantees. So we do have organizations who have received funding multiple years now. So hopefully that tells you if you did receive a grant, you can still receive another one. These are our operating partners, and I mentioned some of these groups. So the City of Philadelphia really serves as the project sponsor for this. As you saw, they're a key funder, and they really provide strategic partnership and oversight of the work. Scattergood is our lead strategic partner. They really support our operations and grants administration. They've also been one of our key planning and funding partners from the very beginning, one of our first funders, and have supported us since then. I am AFE Strategies. I'm sorry, and I don't even think I said my name for those who I don't know already. Ashley Foyer-Edwards. And I serve as the director of the Kensington Community Resilience Fund through my work, through my company, AFE Strategies. And my work really covers kind of the gamut: programming, operations, some grant making, community engagement, fundraising, communications. So I really like to tell our very small organizations, I really relate to you because I also am one person wearing a lot of different hats. So I empathize with how challenging it is to run a small nonprofit and really try to make things as supportive and painless for all of you as we can. And then finally, this year, as our facilitation partner, we have a gentleman named Nigel Charles, who have been involved in our work on our community groups in the past may remember. So Nigel is going to be doing our planning, helping to plan and facilitate our community advisory committee and our community granting group. So we're excited to have him as part of our team. I'm going to pause. I want our team from Scattergood and City of Philadelphia are here tonight. So Allie, do you want to say hi? And then Claire, you can also say hello to everyone.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here and taking the time this evening to learn more about this opportunity. I just want to, really underscore all the work that Ashley has done in AFE Strategies. We would not be close to where we are today without her and her leadership and being able to wear all those different hats and being a strategic thinker and then rolling up her sleeves to like throw an amazing event and trainings and all kinds of things that she does. So I just want to underscore how valuable she has been to both us at Scattergood and to the community as a whole. And just want to say thank you all for being here, learning about this opportunity, spreading the opportunity, and you'll have our contact information at the end, and please reach out with questions, concerns. No question is a silly one. Send them over and we're here to help and support you in the process of applying for these grants.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Claire McEwen. I am the outreach manager with the Opioid Response Unit with the City of Philadelphia. And thank you all so much for being here today and for all the work you're doing in the community. It's really great to see all of you here.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right. So, and then we shared these are our funding partners. Want to thank them. It wouldn't be possible without them. And then we have, because we do have these national opioid settlement dollars, we have a very quick video that's just going to kind of explain like how these dollars came to be part of this work. I think the thing to underscore is, the recognition of the harms of the opioid crisis on the community, and the importance that these dollars from the city's perspective really are working to address those harms and to try to mitigate them wherever possible. So this just gives you a little bit of an explanation of when we say opioid settlement funds, what does that mean?
More than $50 billion is on its way to state and local governments to address the opioid epidemic. The settlement money comes from companies that made or distributed prescription painkillers, well-known companies like Purdue Pharma, CVS, and Walgreens, and others like Mallinckrodt, McKesson, and Cardinal Health. And it's arriving at a time when more than 200 Americans are dying of drug overdoses each day. A lot of people see these funds as a way to reverse the trend and help millions who are suffering from addiction. But why are the companies paying, and will the money actually make a difference? Let's start with a brief backstory on how we got here. In the 1990s, pharmaceutical companies started heavily marketing opioids for pain relief. They said the pills weren't addictive, but that wasn't true, and lots of patients got hooked. Over time, as regulators cracked down on painkillers, people moved to other opioids like heroin and fentanyl, which are even more lethal. State and local governments have been struggling to address the epidemic. More than 4,000 of them sued the drug manufacturers, distributors, and pharmacies that they say sparked the crisis. Many of these companies agreed to settle rather than go through a full trial. Some settlements are still being finalized, but it's estimated the total payout will top $54 billion, the second largest settlement in American history. What was the first? Well, that was the tobacco settlement of the 90s, when states sued cigarette companies and won hundreds of billions. But instead of going to anti-smoking programs, a lot of that money was used to plug state budget gaps and even subsidize tobacco farmers. So that brings us to the next big question. Will the opioid settlement money actually make a difference, or will that get misdirected too? Here's the good news. The opioid settlements specifically say 85% of the money must be spent on addressing the epidemic. But there's a lot of variation in what that could mean. For example, Rhode Island is using $2 million to start a site where people can use drugs under supervision to prevent them from overdosing. Meanwhile, Louisiana is giving more than $65 million to its local sheriff's offices to support law enforcement efforts. City and county governments are receiving a portion of funds too. Some want that to go toward housing for people who are homeless and use drugs. Others say it should go to drug awareness programs in school or to grandparents who are raising grandchildren because the parents died of overdoses. Rehab facilities and other private companies are also lobbying for the cash. So there's a lot of money and a lot of potential uses. But tracking it is hard because most state and local governments have different processes for spending it. That's where we come in. Through our year-long project, we're tracking how state and local governments use and misuse the settlement cash. You can find our reporting at kffhealthnews.org.
All right, so let's go back to sharing our screen. Hold on one second. Here we go. Slideshow. Okay. So my technical difficulties continue. So I think we just wanted to share that just to really, underscore the fact that I think the city really recognizes that when they receive this funding, the importance of investing it back into the communities that really have borne the brunt most sharply from this crisis. So and part of that is also giving the community a voice in this process, which leads me to our participatory approach. This is the structure of our fund, and you can see front and center and really elevated in this work is the community through our community advisory committee, which really helps to set the strategy for this work, doing everything from determining grant size, structure. They do information sharing and outreach. They help to inform our programming and many other roles and support for us. And these are all folks who are leading nonprofits and civic associations. We have grantees on this group. We have residents who've been part of our grant making, faith leaders. So we really try to have a diverse representation of the community. And then we have our community granting group over here, which includes is all residents, and they must reside in the geographic boundaries of our fund. We do have some grantees on this group, and other nonprofit and civic leaders, but the thread throughout is that they have to be residents, and these folks will review your applications. They work collaboratively to identify grantees, and then they'll recommend a slate of grantees for funding. And sort of underneath this, being supportive, is the operations team that we shared and talked about. And we really, collectively try to keep all the wheels turning in the background to make sure that our community members can really get to do the fun work of really making great decisions about what to fund and who should receive that funding. And then the last piece is this learning community that includes our grantees and community partners who are welcome to be part of this. And this is really about building and fostering community connections, peer-to-peer learning, providing capacity building, community events. And we, all the programming is 100% optional, but we like to make this available to our grantees to supplement the funding that we are able to offer. And here I did kind of share with you before the decision-making process. So again, all that strategy is set at the front level with the community advisory committee. Then it goes to the applications go into our community granting group. And then those go to Scattergood, who their board will give a final approval and distribute the funding. I'll say that although they are kind of giving the final approval, Scattergood has never once contested or questioned one of the recommendations from our granting group. I wanted to just talk a little bit about process integrity, because you did see that we do have sometimes grantees who are on our granting groups. As many of you probably know, folks who in Kensington are often involved in many different organizations. And so we knew from the beginning that we did not want to prohibit individuals from participating in this process if they were applying, because some of those people, we have community groups that are applying, civic associations, and so those are residents largely who are obviously all part of those. And so we wanted to make sure this was open to those, but we also recognize the importance of having integrity and fairness in our process. So any granting group members, if they are involved with one of the applicants, either with a direct or indirect conflict of interest, they are required to recuse themselves from reviewing that application or discussing the organization, any organization where they have a conflict. And when we say direct, those things are usually like being a staff member, being a board member, if you have some sort of direct financial benefit or gain from that organization receiving their grant. But we also recognize that sometimes, in a very close-knit network of groups, sometimes people may have what we call an indirect conflict, where even though you don't have one of these formal relationships with financial ramifications involved, you may just feel like there's nothing I could learn about this organization that would ever make me fund them, or that I would ever not fund them. And when folks say that that's the case, and we do a lot of training around that with our granting group, we ask them, and they have always respectfully stepped out from reviewing those applications as well. So our guiding principles. So our work is carried out in service to a number of community affirmed guiding principles and values. And these really serve as a North Star to inform our grant making. And we also support organizations that are aligned with these and work towards these principles and values. And this is part of the application. We do ask about how your work aligns with these. You'll see a lot of parallels to the goals of our organization as well. And then we have 6 different focus areas. And these are issue areas that have been identified as most important to community leaders and residents. And our community advisory committee has, in each cycle that we've done, really affirmed that these are both broad enough and targeted enough to really address, quality of life, resilience, community wellness, all of those areas that we're really trying to advance. I'm not going to go and read through these because we're going to share these slides afterwards. We have included more detailed descriptions to kind of help you get a sense of like what types of programs fall under these different categories. And I'll just note that these are all of this content is in the printable RFP. There's an appendix that has a more detailed description of our focus areas. And then our grant size and uses. So all of the grants here will provide $10,000 in general operating support. This is really intended to give organizations at all budget sizes flexibility and to help you think creatively and maybe do something that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise, because all of your other funding is tied up in restricted program grants. We also really do seek to rectify this scarcity model that so many smaller and grassroots organizations are forced to work under. So we really encourage groups that might typically seek a micro grant. We've had groups come to us and say, oh, I just want to do a couple cleanups. And we've, said to them, we really want you to consider how could you expand this work to have a more sustainable and long-term impact. Our grants can support a wide range of uses because they are general operating support. So that could just mean overhead costs, like your salaries, your rent. It could mean program costs. So some people do use their funding to support a program. That's up to them if they would like to use that, if they feel like that's the best use of it. But also you can simply be using it to support your mission more broadly. These can go to capacity building, to training, to events, supplies, stipends, and they can also be used for initial startup funding for new programs and initiatives. We've had a number of organizations come to us and receive their first grants that they've ever received. And these, were kind of locally grown, resident-driven projects that might not otherwise have gotten off the ground. But I will note with this that you must be located within our geographic boundaries in order to receive this initial startup funding. So groups that are outside of the boundaries, if they are starting something and want to come into the community, they would have to, find a way to develop that program and have a track record in the community. I have a link here that when you receive these slides, it goes to the Scattergood Foundation's website in here. And on the website for where you have all the information about the grant, you can see there's a tab at the top that'll say, it'll say grants on there, and you can see the kinds of organizations that have received funding in the past. Someone submitted that question when in the registration form. So you can get a sense of the kinds of groups that are funded, but we really have a lot of different grants that are supported, everything from kind of after school sports programs, community beautification efforts, poetry workshops, you name it. We have so many different kinds of groups that get funded. The thread is that they're all really supporting residents in the Kensington, Harrowgate, and Fairhill communities. So to be eligible for this grant, you must either have a current 501c3 status or a fiscal sponsor with a 501c3 status, and you or your fiscal sponsor must be in good standing with the IRS. We like to note that this does include faith-based organizations, as well as independent, parochial, and charter schools, friends groups supporting public schools, and friends groups supporting public schools, parks, and other community resources. All of those entities, however, are subject to the 501c3 and fiscal sponsorship requirements. So grant funding and note that grant funding for faith-based organizations has to be used to support community programs and services. So we don't support just purely, even though we are general operating, this is one of those areas where we don't just support like religious services. It is more focused on the work that a faith-based group might do within the community in terms of outreach. And we have had a number of organizations like that received funding. And if you do not have a fiscal sponsor and you need one, reach out to us at that email, and it's all over the website as well. We might be able to help connect you with a fiscal sponsor, or at least just give you a sense of some of the groups that are out there that are providing these services. As I mentioned, we are a place-based fund. We support organizations and projects that are located in or are providing services directly to the Kensington, Harrowgate, and Fairhill communities. Organizations, and this is a new piece this year that we talked about with our community advisory committee. We often would say if you're not located in the boundaries, you have to have a track record of service, which was very squishy. And when you have people reviewing an application, squishiness is not always great. It's important and helpful to have some good parameters around that people can be fair in their decision making. And so we have asked this year, if you're not located in the boundaries, you will need to demonstrate your track record of being able to document at least 2 years of work in the community. And that can look like a lot of different things. It may be, you know, an annual plan that you have that shows that you were, you know, planning to do work in the community. If you have program materials from, you know, workshops you were doing in Kensington, if you have photos from events, videos from performances, things like that. And if you have questions about that, we're always here to help you figure out like what would that look like. We also are requiring 2 letters of support. These can come either from a partner or peer organization that is located in the footprint, or from residents in the footprint who were served by your organization or participated in your programs. We provide a template for that to make it easy, especially for those individuals that you may be asking to fill out on behalf of your organization. So it makes it like very specific. These are the questions. People don't have to do any guesswork around what that template, and what the letter of support is. And then this is our actual geographic footprint. I wanted to show here, we actually, the Community Advisory Committee decided to expand the footprint a bit this year to include all of Fairhill. Our original footprint was guided by the Philadelphia Resilience Project, which was which was put into place a number of years ago by the Kenney administration. And so it had a geographic boundary that was really focused on where was the greatest impact of the opioid crisis. You know, since then, our Community Advisory Committee on a couple of occasions has expanded it in recognition of sort of the reach of that impact really growing. So we previously said we supported Fairhill, but didn't support all of Fairhill. So we now have extended all the way to Germantown Avenue on our western border. And we also now extend down to Cumberland on our southern border to capture parts of West Kensington. And so just one thing to note with this boundary. So when we talk about you have to be located in the footprint, it's within any of the area within these both either yellow or the teal over here, or you have to be providing services in this area. And that also applies for our granting groups. You have to be a resident within these boundaries to be part of the grant making work. We do not have any minimum or maximum budget size for our applicants. We do encourage small grassroots community and resident-led organizations and projects to apply. You know, as I said, we will provide seed funding for that. We like to really support those groups that are really deeply connected to the community, but some of those groups are larger in size. That doesn't mean that you're teeny tiny budget just because you have deep community roots. But what did come out of our Community Advisory Committee conversations this year was that organizations with a budget of $1 million or greater, we will ask you to just explain how this grant fits into your overall budget, which is really helpful for our resident grant makers to understand sort of when they're looking at a really large organization, how this grant can still be really impactful in the community. And then we had noted before, we have 6 different focus areas, so you must have to demonstrate how your work aligns with at least one of these. And similarly, you have to discuss and share how your work aligns with our different guiding principles and values. We recognize you may not be there on all of this, so we also, open up that question to, if this is something you're working towards, please share that with us as well. And then some additional pieces of this, we really support organizations that can demonstrate how the grant will directly benefit residents. So most successful applicants really are able to have articulated that well, really demonstrated that direct impact to the residents. If you are working with children under the age of 18, you must have completed background checks on file for any staff or volunteers who interact with them. We seek to fund organizations that are committed to equity and inclusion with respect to a range of factors that are listed there. We also support organizations with decision makers who reflect the community being served by the organization and project. And we require that you are able to document and report on your use of funds. In terms of prior grantees and applicants, we often get that question of, can I apply again if I didn't receive a grant, or if I did receive a grant? So all prior grant recipients are eligible to apply for the 2024 grant cycle. If you are applying, you have to have had all your reporting requirements from previous cycles satisfied. So if you received a grant in the first 2 cycles, we must have your final report submitted. And if you received a grant in the 2023 cycle, we need to have your 6-month check-in submitted. But we realize that you will not have completed your grant cycle or been able to put your final report in. And then in terms of spending your dollars down, we do ask that all funding from your prior cycles has either been spent or will be spent by the start of the 2024 grant period. So if you received a grant last year, by the end of your grant period, that you anticipate that all that spending will be completed. And then if you anticipate having unspent funds from a 2023 grant, by the end of your contract period, reach out to us so we can just discuss, like, what does that look like? Is it just, hey, you're not going to spend them till the month after because of the way your programs are being run? Or is it, we just haven't been able to get our what we thought we were going to do off the ground, and we haven't spent any of our dollars? So, depending on what that looks like, we'll figure out if you would still be eligible. And then just to be clear, that anyone who applied before and did not receive a grant is eligible to apply for the 2024 cycle. And then to that point before on the eligibility about being able to report. And we did get a question about how long do you have to spend your dollars. So you will have 12 months to spend all funds as part of your grant agreement. And, you must be able to report on those. And our reporting looks like a 6-month check-in. And we tried to keep this pretty light touch, really just to share, what's been going on. Did anything change for you? Have you had any challenges? Is there any way we can support you in the process? And, we're always also here if you want to check in at any time prior to that. And then we asked folks to submit a final report at the end of the grant period. And this is more detailed and in-depth reporting on the use of their funds, any successes they've had, challenges, other updates that they would like to share with us. So how do you apply? So as you're getting ready to prepare your application, for the 501c3 and fiscal sponsorship requirement. There's a couple pieces of documentation you'll need to provide. So if you have your own 501c3, you need to provide the IRS letter confirming tax exempt status, or provide proof of a pending application if you're in the process of getting that status approved. If you're fiscally sponsored, you need to provide that letter from the fiscal sponsor, their IRS letter of their 501c3 status. And you also need to provide a letter from the fiscal sponsor. And we ask it to include a few different things. Again, this helps just make sure that, I think just helps make sure that there's clarity in that relationship with a fiscal sponsor. So they need to confirm their intent to serve as your fiscal sponsor, just share a brief description of roles and responsibilities. They don't have to play any role. Like, we recognize some fiscal sponsors are really just there to help you pass dollars through. Some are providing more robust services, but it's just helpful for us to know what that expectation is, so we know how to kind of engage with your fiscal sponsor versus you on different pieces. And then we asked for what the administrative fee is being paid to the fiscal sponsor, and any financial tracking that you will provide the fiscal sponsor that they expect from the grantee. And if you have questions about this, just reach out to us. So I have a couple examples of what this IRS letter looks like here, because we often get, sometimes people submit the wrong document and then we have to go back and get it from them. So people often confuse this IRS letter on the left, which says yes, with the certificate of registration from the Department of State, which is a Pennsylvania document. This is also great to have, but we don't require this. We just need to know that you have the 501c3 certification. So, and we will share these slides so you can reference back to this. If you have any question about, any of these documentation pieces, again, just reach out so that you're clear and we can make sure you have met all of the requirements. From when you're preparing your application, there are a couple of financial documents that you will have to provide. You'll have to provide a previous fiscal year financial statement, and then a current fiscal year or proposed organizational budget. We provide templates that you need to use. We realize this is an extra step for folks, but because we have residents reviewing these grants, it's really helpful and important. Some of them, our requirement for being part of our granting is that you have lived experience in the community. We're not making sure that people, we're not saying you need to have a degree in finance. So it really helps to have an apples to apples comparison between organizations. It also benefits organizations because, if you're really small and you have a very simple budget, there's not that opportunity to maybe have some unintentional bias towards a group where they say, oh, this budget looks really well developed. This is a really professional organization. And ooh, this organization has this really simple budget. They must not know what they're doing. We want every application reviewed and evaluated on the merit of the work that's being provided and the merit of the quality of the organization. So, at the end of this, I'll go through, once I'm done with the presentation, I'll share, I think it'll just be easier to kind of show you what those templates look like, but they're all provided in the online portal. One note around your current year, fiscal year budget, or if it's proposed, if you're depending on when your fiscal year runs, include the KCRF funding in your budget assumptions. So both include it as, assume that it is or present the budget with it as a grant that you will receive for the year. And then you can present also on on your budget of what your programming would look like with that funding included. Sometimes people don't know which way to do it. We gotten a lot of questions about should I include it or not? So we're trying to improve clarity for everyone this time around. And then this track record of service documentation. So I will also show you the letter of support template. And again, for the 2 years of service, you'll be able to upload that information in the portal. And again, these can include program materials like a strategic plan, annual work plans, things like that. We're kind of flexible on what that is. And again, if you have any questions, reach out. And then you will be able to apply on our website. We have an English and Spanish version. The Spanish version is still being fully updated, but all of the like attachments you can find on the English version, and they are like the full RFP, which has all the information that's on the website. That is all available in Spanish, and as are all the templates. And then you will have to use our online grant portal, which is Foundin. So folks who have done this already, you'll have an account set up if you've applied or received a grant before. And if not, you'll just have to set up an account, which is pretty easy. And I'm going to go through some screenshots right now. So you will go in, you'll create an account. If you have an account under your organization, you will receive a message that you have to email us to get, I think it says to Allie's contact. So you'll email Allie and just ask for your name to be added so that you can access your organization's account. Allie, did I explain that right? Okay. And so here's when you create a new account. If you haven't done it before, you'll enter all this information. And then once you have that, and if you have an account, you'll go right here. And this is a screenshot from last year. We just reused it, but you'll see in a list of different, you'll see the screen where it says apply. You'll see a list of different grants. And you'll look for the one that says Kensington Community Resilience Fund 2024. And you'll click on that apply button. And that's how you'll get into that application. I think that right now it is listed third on the list because Scattergood has a couple other grant programs running. So you will complete your application. Please make note of the fact that there are character limits. We've tried to strike that balance. Don't feel like you have to meet the character limits, but we want to give people enough space that if you are a more verbose writer, I am one of those people. Sometimes it's harder to write really short. We don't want to make this like a marathon editing project for you. So we try to strike that balance, but don't feel like you have to write as much as the limit is. Just write what you need to answer the question to the extent that you feel fully. But just when you're doing, a lot of people like to they like to, work on it in Word because it's easier to do character counts and formatting and stuff like that. I usually do that when I'm applying for funding or doing an application like this. Just make sure you're checking the character counts because that's what we use, not word counts. Our system only allows character counts, and those do include spaces. So just be aware of that. If you would like to view or complete the application in Spanish, you can do so by selecting at the top corner, you can hit the select language and you can hit whatever language. Most of the time for our community, it's Spanish. And so you will be able to see all the questions in Spanish, and there are Spanish templates provided where that is needed. What I will say is that you can enter your information in Spanish as well. We will handle translating it on the back end. And I think from our side, it won't translate like if you submit it into, which doesn't really, I think, apply to you as an applicant. Just if you need to do it in Spanish, just, so that you can fully read everything, select this to read it, and then you can submit your content in Spanish, and we'll handle interpreting it back to English on the back end. And then you'll see when I talk about templates, you'll see like for the fiscal year financial statement, you'll be able to just click on the template. And then you'll see here, it says click here for a Spanish language template. And then you can save as you go along. So if you, are working on it, save it, and then you can just hit submit when you're done. Once you submit, though, you can't go back. So make sure, you're fully done. And it won't really let you submit if you haven't completed all required questions and provided all documentation. And then our deadline, as a reminder, is Wednesday, March 20th at 5 p.m. So we really do have to, out of fairness, we try to really stick with that deadline. If there is an emergency, or a significant technical challenge with the system, there's something going on with it, you know, try to reach out to us as soon as you're noticing that. If it's not letting you upload something, reach out to us so that we at least have like a timestamp knowing that, hey, you alerted us to an issue with the portal within the time frame that it was due. Also, because of this, really strongly recommend that you go in, set up your account, just play around in the portal a little bit before Wednesday, March 20th, even though I know a lot of people are working on it till the very end. And then after you submit, our team will pre-screen for eligibility. And then any eligible applications will be forwarded to the granting group. They will evaluate, and then we will award grants based on those recommendations. If we notice something missing during the screening process, if something slipped through or you sent the wrong documentation or didn't complete a budget correctly, we will try to get that corrected within a certain window with you. You know, we're not trying to play gotcha here. We do just want you to have the opportunity to apply. Our goal is to get as many applications through to the granting group as possible. So we went over the deadline just in terms of when decisions will be made. March and April is when we'll be doing our internal screening into early April, and then April and May, the granting group will be reviewing, and then in early June, grants will be announced. And as soon as we receive your grant agreements, which usually takes about 2 weeks, all of the checks will be issued. So any questions? I see there's a few in the chat. Yes, I see one person asking for a copy of the PowerPoint. Are there any other questions? You can use the hand raise or just take yourself off mute and speak up.
I have a question. My name
Hi,
is
Lois. Yes.
Hi. Now I'm with Trash Academy, and we were with Merrill Arts at first, but now we've separated from Merrill Arts as of
Okay.
July of last year.
Mhm.
Now our fiscal, we might not be able to get our financials from Merrill Arts for last year, for previous years. Will that be a problem?
Allie, how would you handle that? I mean, I think you're going to be creating that template. Let me actually go stop this share and I will show everyone what those templates look like. Allie, what would you recommend? Because
Yeah, I mean, I think my gut would say to ask Mural Arts and see what they have, and then if they don't, we can work with you to kind of just better understand what your past financial structure has looked like, and we'll kind of take that as a one-on-one case to try to make figure it out with you.
We have a fiscal sponsor. We're Culture Works and we're Model A.
okay, great.
So,
yeah, then we can work with CultureWorks and get whatever they had previous, like whatever the transition and you joining CultureWorks, like we can use that to work from.
Oh, okay, great. And wait a minute. I'm just making sure while I have you, is that all? No, I think that's it.
Yeah, and you can reach out to us at any time. We really try to keep like an open email policy or call. Like we said, our goal is to get as many applications in and with all the requirements met. We're here to support you and help you. And we know, especially if this is, if you're not doing a ton of grant applications, this can be a bit of a overwhelming process. So let us make it less overwhelming for you.
We are going to have Stasia
Okay.
Montel. Yeah, she's going to help us with the
great.
grant application, because I
Great.
know she knows about you guys.
Yes, and I know her. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, that's why I put it out there, because I figured you did know her.
Yes, I do. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm just going to, just with the couple minutes we have left, I just want to show you some of those templates that we talked about. First, if you want to find I talked about, you can look on the Scattergood website and see the grants. So you would just go to the website, and when you go into the Kensington Community Resilience Fund, here's the English version and here's the Spanish version. You can see all of the, like if you have approach, that will be all like the content from the RFP document. And then if you want to see grants, you would hit all grants, and then you can see all of our different grantees with a little description of what their grant was funding. So I think that's always helpful when I'm applying for a grant, if I want to see if I'm a good fit for it, to be able to just see what else has been funded. And you'll see it's a lot of different things. And then the next piece, this is the financial statement. So this is for your last completed fiscal year. So you can see it's like a pretty straightforward, basic template. So you may even be able to, like in the case of your question, Lois, like you may be able to like remember and figure this out if you don't have like a big whole financial statement. Like you might just have some of this information on hand, and you can just complete that and fill it in here. And then this is what the current year organizational budget looks like. It's basically the same. It's just one is for the prior year, one is for the current year. We did the colors different so that it's helpful to distinguish. Make sure you're using, though, the right template for each one when you submit, and that you use the separate templates for current and prior. And then finally, this is the applicant letter of support. So you would hand this to, you can download this. It's set up as a Google Doc that you can download. So we tell you, you just would go to like file, you would click download, and then you could hit Microsoft Word, and then it will download to your computer in a document that you can edit. And what I would recommend is you can hand this to you can give this to either, again, it could be two organizations that you partner, or peer organizations. It could be two residents. It could be one of each. And so you'll give this to them and ask them to complete it for you, and then you will upload it. So if it's easier for them to do it by hand, and then they want to, just like you want to do a scanned copy, we'll accept that. If they want to work on it in the document, that's fine too. So we try to keep it pretty straightforward, just the name of your organization, their contact information, if they're an organization, or address. They do have to be located within the fund's footprint. We ask them to share what the relationship is, just briefly describe how long they've known you, past work together, the kind of services they've received, and then just share a few sentences of why you should receive a grant, and why it's valuable to the community, and then anything else they want to share, and then they just have to sign it.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
Now you're saying that all of the templates are we can click on something within the application to find.
Yes,
like,
it'll be in that portal. It'll be in there,
Okay.
and they're also linked in. If you go into also, I'll just show this again. So
Well,
if
as
you
long
go,
as they're in the portal with the application, then we should be able to find it.
yeah, and then also on Scattergood's website. So when you go onto this thing, you'll see, if you scroll down, there's a menu, and you can see like all of the information. So you can go to this printable RFP and FAQs. We will start posting an FAQ sheet and kind of update it regularly, link to it. But you can see, you can download the RFP here, and in here, under where it says preparing your documents, there are, I believe, there are in the appendices of this, you will find copies of those different pieces if you want to take a look at it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? How long
Yeah,
do
so-
organizations have to use the funds?
Yeah, so 1 year, so I answered that to Amber, and then
Great.
for Anna's question, I have a translation. I believe her question is, could we use the funds for a more comfortable building to support our support groups, such as resilience, domestic violence, cancer prevention, alcohol, and drug prevention, suicide prevention, among other things. So yes, those funds can be used to support building improvements for your programs. And if that is not an accurate translation, please let me know.
And yeah, so, and when you, again, it's more about, do you have the 501c3, and also that geographic boundary. So as long as your program and that building is located in the footprint, or you have a track record of service, and it's going to be for all people that are in, you're serving in the community. Any other questions?
Nope, I think I'm good.
Great. Anyone else have any questions? Hopefully that means we were comprehensive. Well, it's 6:32. Everyone, I'm sure, is ready to be done for the day. And thank you so much for joining us again. We will post a recording of this, possibly tomorrow morning's recording, since I clearly had a lot of technical issues. So maybe that one will be a little smoother sailing. But one of the sessions will be recorded. I mean, will be posted. So
Thank you so much. Thank
all.
you.
Thank you very much.
Hope everyone has a great evening.
Thanks.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.